This is not something I usually like to do in a debate, but there are just two of you, and I'd like you to take a minute and just give us a short bio. Introduce yourselves. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? What are the major kind of steps in your professional career? Let's start with you, Tracy.
Sure. Thanks, Dave, YIP, and the League of Women Voters for having us. Alan, of course, thank you for being here. Quick 3x5 biography. I live in the Fittler Square section of the city with my wife, Lindsay. We have 2 dogs. I grew up in Upper Darby, just on the other side of Cobbs Creek there. Went to Bywood Elementary and Upper Darby High. And when I came to the city, I always thought I was in the city on the other side of Cobbs Creek, but I guess not. It was when I went to Temple. Temple, I studied political science. I got my master's degree in government administration from the Fellows Institute of Government at Penn. But I have an interesting resume. I'm a student of public policy, but a merchant by trade. Through a variety of circumstances, I wound up at a very young age working for a number of international retail brands. And I was the youngest director for one of them as they were going through their IPO. And I have traveled really to every corner of the earth. And it's given me a unique perspective on what it takes for a local area to thrive and to grow. So that's what brought me to this race. I did work on David O's city council race in 2011, which really got me involved in city politics on the recommendation of David Thornburg at Fells, and have been spending the last year of my life working concurrently on this.
Thank you. Alan Butkovitz.
Okay, well, I was born at 17th and Cecil B. Moore Avenue. Grew up in Winfield. Went to Overbrook High School and went to Temple and Temple Law School. We got into the legal profession at a time when advertising was beginning. We did a door-to-door neighborhood practice. And we took on some sacred cows back then. We brought the First Amendment case that opened up the Mummers Parade to women and minorities back in 1980. Did environmental coverage law, did civil rights law, did criminal defense, workers' comp, everything. Really had a chance to get into the foxhole and learn about people's problems and become a counselor and work as a protector of people. I was involved in the anti-Rizzo movements back at the end of the 70s. I was elected to the legislature in 1990 and was a maverick all the time in the legislature. We accomplished a number of significant goals, repealing retirement tax in my first 6 months. We did a major exposure of violence in the Philadelphia public schools during 1999 and 2000, exposed about 300 documented cases of serious violence.
Keep this to the condensed version, Alan.
Well, this is the condensed version. Created the Victim Advocate's Office in the legislature. And I think, and I guess we'll get into it in more detail, I've been controller since 2005, and I believe we've revolutionized that office and made it a major center of problem solving in Philadelphia.
And you're the ward leader of the Democratic ward leader of the
54th ward.
54th ward. Are you a ward leader yourself, Terry?
I am not.
Okay. It's been a while since we've had a Republican candidate who wasn't. Congratulations. All right, let's talk about the office that we're running for. And you are in different positions here. I mean, Terry, you are aspiring for the office. You've thought about what you want to do with it. Alan, you've had 2 terms to try and make something of it. But, you know, when you look at how the office is defined in the charter, it has certain specific obligations. You have to audit city departments. You review payments to make sure that they are, you know, subject to a conformed contract and an invoice, and they're paying, and that they're due and payable, but there's a lot of discretion here about how you audit and how you use the bully pulpit. So let me turn to you first, Terry, and ask you, when you've thought about this office, how do you think you would use it differently?
Well, you know, first I would say that I would do what it is the charter intends, which is audit every agency in city government every year. And I'm not talking about spot audits or partial audits or what have you. I think given the nature of the crises we face, we have to have full independent financial reviews of what we're doing. I think in particular, the role of the school auditor can be magnified and strengthened. But one of the things that I think is probably a point of departure in particular for Alan and I is, you know, there's this funny component of the office that is focused on policy analysis. And one of my issues with city government is that we sort of we reel from crisis to crisis. We stumble from problem to problem. And when you look at the outcomes that we have socioeconomically, you can draw no conclusion but that we've a major failure in our public policy choices. And I think the controller is uniquely positioned because of its independence and sort of lack of ideology as well that's inherent to the office, to change the nature of the conversation, to provide the kind of objective oversight and discussion about our public policy decision-making and its implications for the people in the city, and subsequently become better deciders.
So you're talking about moving beyond financial review to policy analysis?
Yes, and the reason...
Give us one example.
Yes, and the reason for that, Dave, is that you have to connect the dots between why we spend all the money we spend and what it is we're expecting to get. So, as an example, the Commerce Department, right? I think in FY14, it's $260 million budget. They basically got a $26 million raise. The Commerce Department is responsible for promoting commerce and economic development. And when you look at the economic development picture in the city, or the economic picture in the city, it's frightening. So did they deserve that raise? Are we getting everything we could out of that department as it was last year? And quite frankly, I've done my homework. Maybe it's just not posted on the website, but I haven't seen that kind of review, objective review. And given the fact that we are dealing with an astronomical poverty rate, a devastating jobless rate, we have to do a deep dive into these things because otherwise there's going to be no way out.
Okay, thank you. Now, Alan Butkovich, you came into the office. You were elected in 2005. You've had some time to get your hands on the controls. You're going to tell us what
In a nutshell,
you've done.
really, Terry just described what we have done since 2005. When I came into office in 2005, 96% of the office's time was devoted to financial audits. We brought performance audits to Philadelphia, and we've been doing them at an average of 8 a year. And the reason that's important is because the financial audits may help you catch crooks and may let people know it tests the accounting system. But the performance audits let you know whether people are getting what they're supposed to out of these services. So, for example, we were in rescue squad services. We made national trend-sending news. Other controllers' offices copied our work and found the same kind of results, that 40% of the time the ambulances weren't getting there on time.
This was back in your
This was
first
in
term.
our first year, in 2006. So we showed how to save lives. We showed how to save $25 million a year, or to make an additional $25 million a year in reimbursements. We showed how to save tens of millions of dollars by cutting out unnecessary rescue squad calls. And the administration has, over a period of years, finally incorporated our work. Everybody would be numb if I went through all the examples of the performance audits that we've probably done about 40 or 50 in my tenure now. And they're all of that kind, because first of all, the mayor and the people that empower, what they're interested in is positive spin. We were in 311, for example. We have gone to the mat on things that were sold as if they were going to be major reforms in the city, which were not working for people. We're not providing people access to getting the kind of service that they needed, the kind of, we've been on L&I for 8 years. We were on the school deficit. The thing that we have is that we have accurately predicted most of the significant financial disasters in the city and have lobbied and presented solutions for 8 years. And we get met with this kind of vague, generalized argument that if you really are Batman, if you can do all these things, well, why don't you solve all of the problems? Maybe how come you can't be over here at the same time you're over there?